We've been talking about organizational core values as a part of our overall strategic intent, and we've discussed the criteria for core values. I gave you three different techniques, tools for identifying, discovering core values. And then we also talked about how to utilize those core values within your organization. Now, what I'd like to think about, just some closing thoughts about core values. Number one, here's a litmus test for core values. How do you know if something is or isn't a core value? I love this thought. Litmus test for core value. It goes as follows. Would our organization be able to credibly claim that we're more committed to these values than 99% of the companies within our industry? Would our organization be able to credibly claim that we're more committed to these values than 99%, almost all of the companies within our industry? If the answer to that question is yes, my friend, you've hit a core value. You've identified a core value. Something else to think about in terms of core values is, and Tony Hsieh, the founder of Zappos, said this. He said it's less important about what the values are, more important that your people are aligned with your core values. Some companies go to great lengths to try to figure out the core values, and certainly you want to spend time, but more important is once you've got those core values, that your people are aligned with those values. Here's another important thought as it relates to your core values. Values aren't values until they cost us money. I'll repeat that. Core values aren't values until they cost us money, until you can think of a situation, an example of a time where that value cost us money. I gave you an example last time of the CEO who decided against doing an acquisition because it violated one of his values, which was family. Values aren't values until they cost us money. Two examples come to mind here. One was a number of years ago. CVS, drugstore chain throughout the U.S., national firm, made a very difficult decision that cost them a lot of money. What was it? They decided to stop selling cigarettes in their stores because they decided that the sale of tobacco products violated their core values. They believe that decision by itself cost them almost $2 billion. Values aren't values until they cost us money. Another example, Dick's Sporting Goods. After what was another mass shooting here in the U.S., the CEO of Dick's Sporting Goods decided that they were going to stop selling certain firearms in the majority of their stores. Again, a decision that cost them hundreds of millions of dollars to stop selling these assault weapons in the majority of their stores. Very difficult decision. What's interesting is that they substituted for those firearms other products, apparel being one of them, that long term they made more money, better margins on the apparel, the clothing goods, than on the firearms. But at least in the short term, that decision cost them a lot of money. The last idea I want to share with you on core values is the following, and that is that company values can actually become harmful when not enforced. So you go through the work of identifying, discovering the core values, you orientate your employees on these core values, and then they go away or they're not enforced. And employees certainly take note of that the first time, the second time, the third time, and at some point it becomes apparent to employees that these are not really our core values because they're not being enforced. This employee, this team, this particular location, they're violating these values on a regular basis, so they can't really represent our core values. And in that respect, they actually can do more harm to the organization than having no values at all. So once we've identified the values, very important that we enforce them, reinforce them on a regular basis. Now it's your turn to get started on your core values.